Hello, this is Mr. Chabry, and we have another narrated Pokemon battle. So this is going to be an underused battle today against Gamer MZ. And looking at my opponent's team, there are some things that are pretty scary. Of course, Caesar is scary, Mega Aerodactyl, the Superior, and Klefki can be annoying as well. I've got my own Klefki, so we're going to hop right into this battle. My opponent's going to lead off with the Togekiss, and I'm actually going to lead off with Breloom. So here I do have the Focus Sash on my Breloom, so I'm going to just go for a Spore here, because it would be nice to put something to sleep. And I didn't really want to switch out because there are a few Nasty Plot Togekisses running around, and I don't want this thing to get a free Nasty Plot. So this thing is now asleep, and that's actually pretty good. A good thing though from that Flamethrower is we didn't get burned, so that means Breloom does have a chance to live for another battle. So I'm going to go into my Entei here. Entei actually threatens this thing pretty decently. I know Togekiss has really good special defense, but if you want to attack it, you have to target down on its defensive side. So now I've got my Entei in, and my opponent's going to go for Flamethrower, showing me that this Togekiss happens to be Scarfed or maybe Specs, more than likely Scarfed. But I'm just going to go for the Stone Edge, and that will bring it down to 1 HP. My opponent now will switch out, wanting to protect that Togekiss and bring it back another time. This time, I'm just going to go for the Sacred Fire. That would take care of anything that wanted to switch in, and this Gliscor is what's going to be the switch in, and it's really nice that we did that right there because we get the burn on this thing. So that's beautiful right there, because this thing with its Toxic Heal could heal itself up if it got poisoned instead, but since we burned it, that's really great. So now my opponent is going to bring in the Mega Aerodactyl, and this thing is a big threat to my entire team. So what I need to do is sack off Breloom. Unfortunately, Breloom, you're not going to get to do much in this battle, so I have to sack something off to Mega Aerodactyl. It has such insane attack and speed, I'll have to play around it. So we're going to sack off Breloom, and that way I can get a free switch into something. And what I want to do is actually go into my Klefki and try to make this thing not as much of a threat. And the way I want to do that is actually paralyze this Mega Aerodactyl. Mega Aerodactyl has crazy speed, and if I could slow it down where my Pokemon can outspeed it, that would be wonderful. So we're just going to go for a Thunder Wave, and it's going to hit us with an Earthquake, of course, because there's not really a reason for it not to Earthquake, but we actually survived that. This Klefki has not really any speed investments, so the next turn, we're still not going to outspeed this thing, but I don't really have anything to switch in to this huge threat, so we're going to let Klefki go down, unfortunately. But yeah, this Klefki does not have Reflect or Light Screen. This is a different Klefki set, but we're going to let it go down, and we could bring in our beautiful Crawdaunt now, because Crawdaunt does have some decent bulk, and I'm going to go for a Crabhammer. But unfortunately, we miss, and that miss is actually probably going to cost us this entire game, because if we hit that Crabhammer, this thing would be gone. We would not have taken any damage on our Crawdaunt, and Crawdaunt wouldn't go down next turn to Life Orb. So I'm going to go Aqua Jet, thinking maybe he'll keep his Mega Aerodactyl in, but no, he's going to swap it out into Klefki and start trying to set up some Reflects and Light Screens. Here, I've got to go Entei here. I need to, because Entei is really the only thing that can really do much to this Klefki. So we have Entei in, and my opponent's actually going to go for a Light Screen, which I understand why, because Sacred Fire, you would think that's a special move, but it's actually a physical move, so Reflect would have been better there, maybe. I'm not sure if Klefki would still survive, but yeah, we take it out with a nice Sacred Fire. So now my opponent is going to go into the Superior and go for a Substitute. So this happens to be one of those Superiors that have Substitute, and probably Leech Seed as well, and of course they all have Leaf Storm, probably Hidden Power Fire. But even though Entei resists Hidden Power Fire and Leaf Storm, this thing is still a huge threat, because if it brings us down enough that a Leaf Storm will take us out, there's not much we can do. And right now, my opponent has a Substitute and has that Berry, so he's going to get some health back. and he's now behind a substitute. So that's actually very bad, and I think I'm also at the range that I could be taken out with Leaf Storm. So this thing is going to start trying to set up on me. It's a huge threat, and Entei is going to go down to the Leaf Storm now. So, of course, it would be a lot different if we had Crawdaunt still. Of course, Crawdaunt wouldn't want to face this thing down, but Entei would still have a little bit more health, and we would still have our Crawdaunt in the back. So now I'm going to go into my Beedrill. Really, the only hope I have to even do anything at this point, because my opponent is taking out my team one by one, and I'm just going to go for a U-turn. It is super effective. Mega Beedrill does have crazy high attack, so a nice U-turn will finish this thing off, and we're going to have to switch it out. I need to stay on the offensive, though, because I need to be able to turn this around. Of course, my opponent's going to go back into the Togekiss, and Togekiss, of course, I'm pretty sure this thing is scarfed, but my Gengar is always scarfed. So we're just going to go for a Shadow Ball, and that will finish off the Togekiss. So now my opponent will go into the Scizor, and Scizor is a pretty scary Pokemon. This happens to be not the last Pokemon my opponent has, but second to the last. We both have 2 Pokemon left. I'm going to go Shadow Ball, and it doesn't do hardly anything. And now the Scizor is going to start setting up some Swords Dances, so I'm very scared of this thing. This thing could easily Bullet Punch, and there's not much I could do about that. The only thing I could hope for is a special defense drop and maybe not take that much damage, but this thing actually has Brutal Swing, which I don't see that often on any Pokemon, so that's actually pretty interesting. But now I'm going to go into my last Pokemon, the Mega Beedrill. It's 2 bug types facing each other down, and my opponent does have a +2, and that will be enough to finish off our poor Beedrill. So, unfortunately, we weren't able to get a win there, but we did pretty good, I would say. But yeah, if you like this, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you in the next Pokemon video.